Can you talk about how and why you started your company?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for that incredible fireside chat. I feel so inspired. I feel like Daniella basically told my story by telling her own story. And I think it goes to show how many of us Latina have dealt with that sort of like identity challenges throughout our journeys. And that is very much on par with why I started Ceremonia. Ceremonia is a clean hair care brand that is rooted in my Latin heritage. And for me, this brand is almost like a homecoming because I spent my entire childhood and teens more or less running away from my culture. And I'm now dedicating my adulthood in honoring it and really owning it and sharing it with the world. And Ceremonia is that platform. My father was actually a hairdresser back in Chile. So this feels like a very full circle moment for me where I didn't think I would go in his footsteps, but here I am as the founder of a hair brand. So yeah, this is a very mission-driven company for me.
You have a little bit of an accomplishment that you achieved this month. Can you brag about Sephora for a second?
Well, thank you. Yes, we are so honored. We launched as the first Latina-owned hair brand to launch at Sephora in stores and online. Thank you. We're also currently on Sephora's Times Square billboard. They're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month with us, which we're very proud of. So yeah, thank you.
Have to. Okay. Bianca, you were not an entrepreneur originally. You had a corporate career. Birdies is a bit of a second act, but can you talk about how you came to be a founder and what drove you to start your company?
Yes, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I have to say, it's been an emotional morning, I think, to hear from women talk about how they've sort of didn't want to lean into their Hispanic heritage, and that resonates with me. And I'm almost ashamed about it, and it just feels wonderful to be with other women who have felt the same. And now we're breaking free, and we're proud of who we are. So I spent many years at Facebook. I was in advertising sales there. I ran retail partnerships. I worked with Nordstrom and Gap Inc., Williams-Sonoma, Adidas, helping them scale their businesses on our platform, and enjoyed my career there. My parents were so proud of me. We were making the world more open and connected. I was able to connect with all of our family in Latin America for free on the platform. And then I started dabbling with this idea of starting a stylish slipper company, which was really just solving my own problem of what to wear when I'm home entertaining friends and family. My dad used to walk around with like these beautiful loafers at home, and we women would walk around barefoot or in socks. And I thought, this is silly. We should have something fabulous on our feet when we welcome our friends and family. And so I started moonlighting as a shoe entrepreneur at night, not knowing what I was really doing. And launched the business while at Facebook, and much to my surprise, the business just started to take off. And 2 years into the Birdies journey, I had that moment of, when do I leave my career at Facebook and do this full time? And it was when I got an email from Andy Dunn, the co-founder of Bonobos, who said to me, you're getting real traction. I want to make an investment in you. And so I left my job at Facebook. And I remember talking to my parents, and I said, I'm going to sell shoes on the internet and leave my job at Facebook. And they're like, no, you have a good 401k match there. Stay there. And I did it, and the rest is history.
Are they proud now?
They're very proud now. They were very nervous that I lost my mind.
They should be. But I mean, I've heard other people say it takes some time for parents to accept the founder journey, parents of all backgrounds. So I know it can be a struggle. Daniella, I know we've spoken a lot about how not all founders have your background. You have a very different path to where you got to the Newsette. Can you share that path?
Yes, and it's so funny that it seems like a lot of the advocates that have been advocates in my life are shared among some of the women here. So Serena Williams is actually a close, I don't want to call her friend, like colleague of mine now, because she is the lead investor of Wondermind, my second business. And so I just texted her and told her the story you just said, and she just sent so many emojis. And then Andy Dunn is somebody that I was lucky enough to speak with on a panel at Forbes 30 Under 30. Was it last week? or the week before.
Oh my God, it was last week.
There's so many Forbes events. And then Maggie interviewed me for the Forbes Women Summit last month. Yes, so we're all connected, and it's so great to see that these people are advocates for many Latinas, not just myself. But I'm Daniella Pierson. I started my company, The News Out, when I was 19 as a sophomore in college. I have an unconventional path to success because I'm an identical twin, and I was always seen as the dumb twin because I just hated school. I knew I didn't want to study an atom. I knew I didn't care about how to measure a triangle, so I didn't really buy into all the classes until I realized that my sister was getting all of this mail junior year of high school from the best colleges in the world, begging her to apply, and I might as well have been getting mail from the worst colleges in the world telling me not to apply. So I realized, oh crap, I'm going to be stuck in Jacksonville, Florida my entire life unless I get my shit together. And I did. And so I found a way that worked for me to study, and now I know I have ADHD, which would have been nice to know back then. I don't know if it would have made a dent, though, because my parents were very anti, medicine and mental health, etc. But I basically worked so hard that I got straight A pluses my junior year and senior year. I ended up going to Boston University. But because of my bad grades in the first 2 years of college, I was in the general studies school. And anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's basically like the bottom 10% of people who get accepted. They're like, oh, we'll put you in this school, and then you can earn your way into the business school or the comm school. And the first 2 years of college, guess what I was studying? Triangles, science, and all of the things that I was like, I just want to work. And so I knew that I wasn't going to thrive in college, and so I said, well, if no one's going to hire me, I better hire myself. So I started an email newsletter called The Newsette. I wrote it every single morning from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m., ran to class, did it all in between. And when I graduated, I was able to have 100,000 subscribers. I made $25,000 my first month off advertising, and I just kept putting the profits back into the business. I was laughed out of every VC room, and now I'm happy to say that we have an agency as well that works with the biggest brands in the world like Amazon, Mattel, etc. And we were just valued at $200 million. Thank you. And that was all with no VC funding. My only other partner is my immigrant mother from Colombia. And I never thought it was possible. I thought you had to get VC funding and you had to be respected by all these people. And so it was really unconventional. And now I have another company, because I don't like to sleep, I guess, called Wondermind that I co-founded with Selena Gomez and Mandy Teefee. Mandy Teefee I met through Sandra, so another amazing connector. And that raised at a pre-launch valuation of $100 million. And I'm very grateful to Forbes because recently there was an incredible story about me. I guess they missed me off of the wealthiest self-made women's list, and so they wrote an article about me, and it actually pointed out that I, at 27 years old, I just turned 27, am the wealthiest, youngest self-made woman of color in the US, which is great, but not so great because I'm 27. So
and we generally need more, right?
Yeah.
And I think Bianca and Babba, you've to both talked to me about your investors a little bit. Bianca, I know you kind of said it was accidental. You didn't found Birdies intending to enter the world of venture capital, right?
No way. I mean, that was scary to me. Every picture I saw was like these scary white male men and broing it out with each other. And I was like, I could never compete in that world. That was never the path I was planning on taking.
But how have you managed to, what's the secret?
Build a really fucking good business, and they come to you. Our Series Seed was pretty much preempted, a $2 million seed round, and our Series A, $8 million Series A round was also preempted. So build the business, focus on the right business, a profitable business, and the money, will come.
It's simple, but it's not easy, and it's worth reminding everyone in this room. You see global venture dollars, women get 2% of that, and women of color get 0.2% of that. So I think that's a number that we need to keep restating over and over and over, because it is just not acceptable. Sandra talked about sponsorship, and I want to pivot this conversation because I think you've all had sponsors. I'll put Babba on the spot. I said, I know you believe in peer-to-peer mentorship, but I want to stay on the investor theme because I think you've learned some things from your investors. Can you talk about the sponsors who've helped you, and in turn what this audience could learn from those sponsors?
Yeah, definitely. Talk about sponsors. Andy Dunn is also an investor in Ceremonia. He's married to a Latina woman. I feel like he's one of those door openers, one of the real ones. I think angel investors play a super important role in the ecosystem, because sometimes companies are too early stage for the funds to invest, and that's where angel investors come into play as almost a sort of validator. It's like a stamp of approval, and they can also be door openers. So when I was when I was planning for Ceremonia's fundraising process, I realized that I'm a very unconventional founder too. I built my career in the tech industry. I was early on at Uber. I was early on at Away. I then had a brand marketing agency working with, D2C brands like Glossier, etc. But I'm not a celebrity hairstylist. I'm not, an ex-L'Oreal executive, which is usually what you see in the beauty industry. So for me to get sort of like taken seriously in this industry, I needed sponsors. And that's where my early angel investors came into play. People like Andy Dunn, people like, like Sandra, truly. You have been such a supporter, and like this event is a testament of that. And I always tell people that I personally find it so much more interesting to have peer mentorship relationships, because it's a two-way street. And usually those relationships are much more long-lasting because there is a mutual interest in the relationship. I find it kind of uncomfortable sometimes with this hierarchical, you have the answers, I don't, tell me what to do type of relationships. And similarly, I find that uncomfortable the other way around. I find it uncomfortable to be someone's mentor, but I love being someone's advocate and sidekick, friend, peer mentor.
Oh, interesting. So it's easier to think of yourself as I'm helping them, I'm advocating for them. But the second you think mentor, it's ooh, I don't
yeah,
like that.
It feels like this very transactional relationship, I guess. And what's so cool, I think, when I look at my sort of, career journey, the success has really come from my network, and those relationships have been authentic ones, and they have been relationships with peers. And then today, we all happen to have grown in our careers. Like my early friend who was, a struggling editor at Vogue, suddenly she's, really high up at Vogue. And, it's, or she started her own company. So yeah, I really, that's my best advice, I think, is to really invest in your network and don't waste your time chasing people who don't want to meet with you. Look next to you. Those are the future leaders, and honestly, way more important than today's leaders.
Bianca, I know you were instrumental in building some of the earliest Lean In circles, and Sheryl Sandberg is a mentor, sponsor of yours, but not everyone has a Sheryl in their life or access to a Sheryl. What's your advice to this room in finding the Sheryls or developing your network when you don't have access to the Sheryls and the Sandras?
When Sheryl Sandberg shared her commencement speech at Barnard College back in 2009, I had a job that I didn't totally love and wasn't passionate about. And seeing somebody like me, a woman wearing a dress, talking about leaning in, being chief operating officer of a global company, that to me made me stop and think, I want to work for her. I want to work at the company that she's at. And so representation does matter. When I got to Facebook, I introduced myself to her, mainly just to say, thank you, because I never would have thought I could be working at a tech company had it not been for you, sharing your experience and leading this company. And as I had the courage to go and speak to her, she said, this is fabulous. Why don't you come over to my house for dinner and we should catch up more? And I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. And the next day, of course, I'm texting my friends. I'm like, do I email her and say, remember that conversation we had last night? Do I not? And like wait for her to come to me, but then she's going to think that I'm not proactive, but then I don't want to like, make stress her out. And so the whole day I'm debating with my girlfriends, and at like 4 o'clock, her EA texts me and just says like, I heard Cheryl invited you to her house for dinner, so why don't you join? So then I spent the next, 48 hours on YouTube learning how to eat properly, because I'm like, I'm going to a, billionaire's home, and I'm sure she has like 16 silverware out there, and like, what do I use for what? And that Julia Roberts moment of, which utensil do I use? And of course I go in there and it was very casual and wonderful. But what she had done is she had created these like underground monthly dinner parties at her house, inviting women in Silicon Valley to connect and have a conversation. And it was very, very thoughtfully laid out conversation. This was not just networking for networking's sake. It was about really getting deep and creating deep connections that you could like leverage each other's network in the future. And so I would go from time to time, and the rule was never photograph, never talking about it. When you see somebody at Facebook on campus, never discuss it. Just do the wink. And for me, what it taught me was, we need to do more of this. The confidence I gained being in that room gave me many more opportunities to go and try more things. So I talked to her about a year later, and I said, I want to do similar things that you're doing, but like more at scale with my network of girlfriends. And can you share with me the agenda that you have for these meetings to be successful? And she said, you know what, I'm coming out with a book in 6 months called Lean In. And the idea is this like, call to action to create peer-to-peer mentorship circles. I would love to beta test my theory with your group. And so that was the beginning of, now my Lean In Circle has been meeting every month for the last 10 years.
Wow.
And I highly recommend doing this. And so it goes back to peer-to-peer mentorship. So when I talk about Cheryl, she, from a distance, she gave me the vision to go and to grow my career at Facebook. But I wouldn't say she was the reason for a lot of what I'm doing. A lot of it was just that peer-to-peer networking, what you were talking about, that connection, that conversation. And a lot of times what we need and what we lack is just confidence. And I think we get that from each other, talking about it, cheering each other on, supporting each other, introducing each other. And that confidence, I think, can drive us. But we're lacking those connections, especially as women. And I think we need more of those connections together.
And that's why events like this are so important. I'm going to get the 1 minute mark, but I want to put Daniella on the spot, because I have a little pet peeve with all these months, and my colleagues at Forbes The Culture shares this perspective. I hate International Women's Day. They say we should do more than Black History Month. Daniella, you build out an agency within the Newsette.
Yeah.
So very quickly, in 1 minute, can we share with this audience how we can authentically move these issues forward beyond Hispanic Heritage Month?
Yeah, well, first of all, even before the agency, as soon as anybody who is of a minority finds success, you should immediately try to pay it forward. So even this year alone, I've donated, or I guess invested and donated over $1 million to women of color owned businesses, and I just opened up an additional $100,000 for anybody else for the rest of the year, just because I didn't get that funding, and so I would like others like me to get that funding. But through our agency Newland, and again, I can't thank Sandra Campos enough, because she introduced me to DVF, who then introduced me to Jeff Bezos at Amazon, and it kind of went from there. We essentially work with the biggest brands in the world to not only have them celebrate International Women's Day or Black History Month, to celebrate diversity among the entire year, but also hitting all of their goals and KPIs. So our agency basically kicked out all 70% of the other agencies that Amazon worked with that were billion-dollar companies, because we were gritty, we provided better results. One of our TikTok campaigns had 11 billion views, but we also use the millions of dollars these brands give us to allocate it towards, huge influencers, but then we do the extra work to find those micro-influencers who are in the Hispanic community, in the disabled community, etc., to power their careers, and all of a sudden they're able to say, I worked with Amazon, or I worked with Mattel or P&G, and then they're able to, just kind of take off from there. So that's really how our agency does it, and so I would encourage anybody here, obviously those partners that Sandra named, to really consider working with agencies that are not only founded by people of color and minorities, but also who truly care and not only over-deliver the results you want, but weave in diversity in the process.
Such a good point. All right, I think we are out of time. Otherwise, we would be up here all day. But please find these ladies after the panel. Thank you all so much.